For me, it's the funniest thing was just driving in America.
Oh, now that's funny. I will
Sorry.
tell about coming to the U.S. and what she noticed. That's funny. Okay, good. Hold on to that. That'll be great. I love it, Josh. I love it. Hey, friends. This is John Darnell. I'm the CEO of Global Outreach, and this is Go Fish, a missions podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Josh Yerkes. Josh, how are you today?
I'm doing good, brother. I am here in person in Tupelo, Mississippi. We did our Zoom, I guess we're calling it a Zoom podcast the last time. And it's good to be here in person at the headquarters.
It is. It's always great to have you in town, all the way from Virginia. You make the long trek to Tupelo.
It is a long trek. Yeah, Jason always jokes about Tupelo being the crossroads of travel for the United States, and he says that very sarcastically. So,
well, you know, it's really interesting because when they were recruiting us off the field to move from Ecuador, where we were doing ministry, to Tupelo, the CEO before me was showing us around town, introducing us to people, and what was commonly said was, you know, we're only 2 hours from Memphis, 2 hours from Birmingham, 3.5 hours from Nashville, and 3 hours north of Jackson, Mississippi. So, I mean, really, you can get anywhere from here.
and he was serious.
And it was, several people told us that. That's combining several things.
Yeah, we don't, if you're from Tupelo watching this podcast, we're not doing this to offend you.
We're not being disparaging. Here's what I would say about it, truthfully, is I'm a Mississippian, and where I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, we looked up to Tupelo. Because it's a really great city. It's a very generous city.
Yeah.
It's a very nice place to live.
Elvis was born here.
I did not see that coming. Elvis, the birthplace, as it's called.
The birthplace.
The birthplace. And really, it's just a testament to the Lord and His faithfulness that in rural Mississippi, God gave a vision to Sammy Simpson and L.D. Hancock to start a missions agency in 1970 that we're still in Tupelo, but has grown to 300 plus missionaries and 50 plus countries.
Yeah. We were at our missions showcase last night, which we held at a local church, and one of the elders shared towards the end that it's just crazy to think that those 12 different missionary presentations who are literally going to the ends of the earth, like that's being birthed out of Pontotoc, out of Tupelo, Mississippi. So God can literally use anyone and any place, and He wants to, and so we're thankful.
You know, like the Bible says, you know, the Pharisees said about Nazareth, like, what in the world good can come out of Nazareth?
I'm going to refrain from comment on that one.
Okay, okay. Well, it's God's goodness and His faithfulness. Josh, what are you excited about right now?
Man, well, the reason that I am here in Tupelo, Mississippi, is our MOT week, which we've talked about before. That stands for Missionary Orientation and Training Week. We shorten it to MOT because that is a mouthful. And we have 12 different missionaries, some missionary couples, some individuals that are here at our headquarters, literally on the other side of the building right now in the middle of a session that are being poured into. They've put in a lot of hard work to be here. And we're just so thankful for, again, the gospel going to the ends of the earth through these ones who are faithful, these servants who want to be used by God. So that's something that I'm really excited about. I'm especially excited about last night being one of the teachers of the development training when you see missionaries stand up in front of a pretty large church and put those skills to use and do it really well, cast vision for their ministries. You kind of feel like a proud parent, and I realize that I'm young. I do have 2 children, but you kind of feel like a proud parent because all 12 of those individuals and couples that shared last night did an excellent job. So we're really thankful for that.
These MOT weeks are so special. It is like church camp for adults.
Yeah.
And if you do, I mean, it really is. And if you do live close to Tupelo, every February, June, and October, we do a missions showcase. Go to a local church, and it's similar to a Shark Tank pitch. If you've ever watched something like Shark Tank where they give a ministry presentation. But really what's been so edifying to me this week has been missionary testimonies that we as believers get to hear what God is doing in someone else's life. It's so edifying. is so helpful. It's so encouraging. And I ask myself, why don't we do that on Sunday mornings more often? I really wonder that. And if you're a pastor or a leader of a church listening to this podcast, I do not offer that as a criticism. It's genuinely a question. Hey, let's train them how to share their testimony, which seems like that'd be helpful for discipleship and evangelism.
Indeed it is.
And give them a 5-minute opportunity on a Sunday morning. And we get to hear that God is alive and active and moving and saving and reconciling.
Yes, he is.
It's a pretty amazing thing.
It is an amazing thing. I'm excited to hear from Ruthie in a few minutes, one of those missionaries who shared last night and who is here with us, and we are so blessed by her presence and her ministry, her family's ministry. I won't give away any more of her story. She's excited to share that with us, but she's been a really bright spot in the week. And
I'm excited to hear from her and interview her for this.
Yeah. So, John, we kind of start these podcasts off with a little bit of banter and then just transition into what is happening in the world. Obviously, we are a global missions agency. It's in our name. And so we try to stay in tune with what's going on around the world, sometimes in missions, sometimes just on a global front. But just give us an update on what you're seeing and what you got your pulse on.
Yeah, by the time this podcast drops, the news of the missionary couple and also the Haitian Christian who worked in that ministry will be a couple of weeks old.
Yeah.
But for us, as we film this podcast, the reality of the danger of being a missionary and how heartbreaking it is, a very young couple who had said, yes, I want to be faithful. I want to follow Jesus. I want to go show love in Haiti, were killed doing just that. They were not global outreach missionaries, but our missionaries were really close with the greater family. This is our ministry base is in Titayen in Haiti, and this family was between Titayen and Port-au-Prince. So they ate pizza together frequently. They had time together. They studied the Word together. They encouraged each other. And our missionaries are stateside at the moment, so he reached out to me and he said, John, I just wanted to let you know before it hits the news what's going on. And they went to be with the greater family in Oklahoma for the celebration of life. And we thank Jesus that couple they went together to be with the Father. But man, I would just tell you, listener, to just hit pause right now and just say a prayer for that extended family and for the Haitian Christian, the leader as well. I think Jude was his name. Leaves behind a family.
Wow.
He's a young guy with kids and a wife who his wife is now a widow. His children are now orphaned. And, the world can come in and make these stories what they want in terms of how their lives play out. But I pray, and I would encourage you to pray about that God would do a Romans 8 thing with this story, that genuinely all things would really work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose.
Yeah. So I know this is a question that I've even had, and I'm sure many who are listening who maybe aren't, involved in global missions at the level that we are, working for an organization like this, may wonder, why were they still there? Some may see that as the greatest sacrifice. Others may see that as hey, they shouldn't have been, as many missionaries have pulled out. Could you help the listener understand kind of the balance there and some of the things as a CEO of a missions organization with people in hostile places, kind of some of the thought process that goes in there? I actually just kind of stepped into a session where you guys were talking about this morning with our missionaries. Why don't you just peel back the curtain on that?
Yeah, there's some values that we talk about, as we don't have blanket policies on people being there or not being there. Number one, missions is inherently risky.
Yeah.
So we're trying to take Jesus where the gospel has not gone yet. So that means that people don't have a Christian society. It's not perfect. It's full of sin. It's downfallen. So if we want to pierce the darkness, it's inherently dangerous.
Yeah.
It's not just going to the next suburb for a missionary. It's going to a place where the gospel hasn't gone. So that is something that has to be kept in tension, especially for an organization that also wants to avoid risk. How do you do both of those things at the same time? So there's always going to be a tension with how much risk is too much. Another one is faithful and fruitful. You know, a lot of our missionaries, they're faithful, they're consistent, and then you have to look at a crisis or a dangerous situation they're in and say, okay, but is there fruit of them being in this situation? Is it worth the risk? I can't speak for this couple. I did not know them. I don't know what their ministry was.
Yeah.
But it could be that they love Haiti. They love the people that they serve with, the people that they're serving, because there's a lot of innocent families that are tied up in all this gang violence. So they don't want to abandon the people, and they're seeing a fruit of sticking by the people, and they're seeing the gospel move because they're there.
Yeah.
So it seems that they made an intentional choice to stay there in the middle of that.
Yeah.
So those are a couple of things. There's a whole lot more. That's an hour-long session that you were talking about. But
That'll
those
be a
are a
bonus
couple of
episode
things
one day,
to help us think through. It's an intentional choice sometimes to stay in danger and love the people we were sent to love and let God use that however he chooses.
Yeah, we were at our faith family at our church the Sunday after that. It was Memorial Day, and so it was kind of an interesting intersection of, hey, we're celebrating men and women who have fought and died to preserve freedoms, but there's also this remembrance of this couple that made that same sacrifice for the kingdom that is greater, for the kingdom of Jesus. And so we were challenged to remember them in that light. And at the end of the day, we are thankful for their faithful service, but our hearts hurt. Like, I mean, I've spent a lot of time just meditating and praying and thinking, and I cannot imagine the pain that is for their families, but those families are also very proud of the incredible work that they were doing, and the fact that, hey, we don't want to give up on our people here, and we're going to stay here, and knowing those risks, they gave that ultimate sacrifice. So we really appreciate their ministry.
Absolutely. Another thing in the world of missions, another place where there's a lot of conflict is in Israel. And you and I have had the chance this week to visit with one of our missionaries who's in town, who spent 3 months this spring in Israel. And I will just encourage you as a viewer or listener to continue to pray for God to use that situation for his purposes and his glory. A lot of times when we watch the news as Americans, we're watching it through a geopolitical lens.
Yeah.
And we forget the spiritual battle. And I'm not talking about what land belongs to whom and what God said. That's not what I mean by spiritual battle. That in the middle of conflict and hard things, I mean, you see it in the Bible, that God is using those things to bring people to himself.
Yes, he is.
So I was reminded, she was there the night that Iran launched the missiles at Israel. So she told me the story of that hitting the news, and they all started praying, and how she was able to minister to both Christians and Jews who don't know Christ yet. And just the testimony of God's faithfulness through those times.
Wow.
So God is on the move. We watch the news, Josh, and we can be tempted to think this world's going the wrong way. Everything is a disaster. Yet God is in the midst of those things.
Yes, he is.
He will get the glory. His kingdom will come.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share just about that, about Haiti, about Israel, just to remind people to pray.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about interviewing Ruth here in a little bit.
Yeah, we are too. So if you are interested, if these conversations or previous episodes or missionaries in your own church that have shared is spurring and sparking your heart and creating questions that say, man, could that be me? One of the things that we were reminded last night at Shark Tank was, like, these are engineers and teachers and medical professionals, and like it's not just church planners. There were many church planners, and we were very thankful for that. And ultimately, we want to build the church, but it's a gamut of people, and so it's ordinary people like you watching and listening who just said, I want to be obedient to the Great Commission and what God is calling me to do in my life, who are going to these places, some dangerous, some more than others, but they're just being willing to say, hey, God, use me. That Isaiah kind of like, here am I, Lord, send me moment. So if you're curious about that or want to learn more, is God calling you? That we literally have a button on our website that says, is God calling you? We dare you. We've dared you before.
Dare you to push it.
Click it.
Click that
Just
button.
try. And that's what these MOT weeks do in me, is they just really stir me to go out and raise up that next generation of laborers. And one of those incredible laborers is going to join us now on our podcast, Ruth Kato. She is an incredible human, and we are so blessed to have her here.
All right. I would like to welcome to the Go Fish podcast today my dear friend, Ruth Kato.
Hi.
Good to have you today.
Thank you. You say that so well.
You know, I had a really good teacher that taught me really well, you know. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So it's Missionary Orientation Training Week.
Yes.
So you're joining Global Outreach as a missionary to Uganda. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your family.
So I am Ruth Kato, and I am married to Derek Kato with 2 beautiful boys. Jaden is going to turn 6 very soon, and he's like, come back with the truck. And then Jason is 4, and they're amazing. Yeah.
Well, we do need to get Emily to take you by the store where you can get the truck or the tractor or whatever he wants for his birthday.
Remote control truck.
Oh, there's
very specific.
Very specific. Well, you better get that taken care of.
Yeah.
So on the Go Fish podcast, we like to interview people in ministry that are in ministry with Global Outreach and really pull back the curtain on what it's really like in ministry. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about the ministry that you do there in Uganda.
So my husband and I are back into the village that I was born in, Bogoba, and we are going to serve. We're serving in a school. We have a clinic, and we have a huge farm, and it is exciting for us to go back. But when you ask what it is really like, it's not normal for a Ugandan man to be married to a Ugandan girl and go into his village or her village to serve there. So that's a huge shock. Everyone talks to Derek is like, what are you doing? Did she marry you or did you marry her? Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it would be customary, from what you're saying, for the woman to go to the man's village and live there.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. So you told us a little bit about what the ministry has there. Why are those things needed in your village?
Yeah. So Uganda has 75% unemployment. The poverty levels are high, but also we live on a beautiful lakeshore of Lake Victoria, but there used to be fishermen and they no longer fish. And so the poverty is high because the kids do not go to school. The medication system is not good at all. And lots of people are dying, but not only the physical, they're so spiritually dark. They don't know Christ and no hope. So,
yeah, there's a tremendous opportunity there. What's the hardest part about doing ministry in your village?
It is hard to see the next generation just crumbling away. For us, my husband and I, we always say this all the time. The faith of the next generation is everything to us. But also the hardest part about my husband and I going back there is that we're looked at as, we're going to provide everything, or you guys have it all, you're successful, we can look to you. And really, we want to point them to Christ. We want them to know that He is the ultimate Savior and He's our hope. And that's our prayer.
Amen. Mm-hmm. What would surprise our listeners about doing ministry in Uganda?
Most times, I know people say this all the time, but honestly, with doing ministry in Uganda, it's that you have so much fun.
Well, that's good. That is a good thing.
Yes. You come in and you think like, oh my goodness, it's going to be so hard and stuff. People are very nice. They're fun, but also they just want to serve you. Like you learn so much out of it. You end up making friends and just doing real life with people. So.
Well, we had the opportunity to join you in March there, my family. So my wife and daughters went, and that was Samantha, my oldest daughter. That was her impression of Uganda. She said, Dad, everyone's so welcoming. Everyone's so nice. Everyone's so kind to me. And I could definitely see how that would be a lot of fun to be welcomed somewhere, right? What's your favorite part of doing ministry?
My favorite, ultimate favorite, is visiting the judges, the kids, the grandpas, and even the youth. Like just doing life with them. And when you go into someone's home, they just welcome you. You sit down, you chat, you get all kinds of offers of food. But even so, you go deep into who they really are, and they open up to you. So that's really fun.
That's a blessing. Tell us about somebody that, and you don't have to use their real name in case they watch you on the podcast. Tell us about someone in the village that God has placed in your path that you're laboring for.
Okay. So I'll tell you about Nalongo. I use that name. Anyway, Nalongo means a mother of twins. So that's not her real name. So she is amazing and so full of joy. And she has never wanted anything to do with Christ, anything like just life with me and us and my husband. But a few weeks ago, she called and I was going off with jokes and everything. She's like, "No, Ruthie, will you come and pray for my family and for me?" And her son, who is 19, he was declaring death and just saying, "I'm going to die May 25th. I'm leaving, and this is how my funeral is going to be." It was really dark and sad. And we were able to go, my siblings and I, to her home, and we prayed over this young man that confessed Christ. And on the 26th, we sat there and we're like, "Waso, you're alive. Like God has redeemed you, and you can do so much more for the Lord." So that family is on our hearts to just walk with them, continue to walk with them, and show them who Christ really is. And we're excited about that.
That's incredible. What has God been teaching you lately?
Just to practice His word. I grew up a Christian. Know His word like in my head, and so I wanted to start like playing out, like just practice my word. If I say, pray, stretch your hands out to the sick and pray over them, actually doing that and obeying, those are the two words that God has been teaching me.
Where have you seen that? Where have you seen Him bring that to life?
So I walked down to the lakeshore with one of the students. I was just escorting them back home. And we get there, and the grandmother's not around, and this 15-year-old is there. And so I was just able to, she was like, "Someone is really sick in the home." And I felt God tell me, lay hands on them and pray. And I was like, "Oh, that's weird." But doing that was so powerful, because the kid came to me a week later and was like, "When you came and prayed, something changed." And I was able to get up and play. So that was really nice.
That's incredible. And that's the thing about faith, and that what you're talking about. It's like, man, am I going to look like an idiot if I do this?
Yeah.
And sometimes we can make it about us, right? But we're also thinking, Lord, I don't want to I don't want to pray and then nothing happen. And we get caught up in ourselves. And praise God, you were able to just step into faith in that moment.
Or sometimes you could just be like, "Hey, I'll pray tomorrow," or "I'll pray later on." But obeying and doing it right away is also powerful of obedience.
What would you say to our listeners that maybe God's called them to do something and they're scared?
Lean into Him. Trust that He's God and He's good all the time, and He's got you, even in those thoughts.
That's good training. I think, as you think about Missionary Training Week and what we're going through, obviously you have so much ministry experience. And so I'm curious, as an experienced person stepping into new missionary training, what part of it has really stuck out to you and been impactful?
Just really realizing that you are not alone, and that there's a huge impact that comes into ministering to our donors as well, and that's the part. Like sometimes you're like, "Oh my goodness, I have to ask all these people about support and everything." No, donors are in this with us, and that's so, freeing and exciting at the same time. So.
Yeah, that ministry, that two-way relationship, we've found that when we would come back to the States and meet with people who were supporting us, that they would share prayer requests with us, or they would email us on the field and share things with us. They weren't telling their pastor. They weren't sharing with their small group leader. And it's just such an opportunity to minister. So you've eaten a lot of food this week in the U.S.
Yes.
And I know you studied in the U.S. This is not your first time in the U.S. But what is the favorite food that you've had this week?
The lemon crunch cake was the...
Yes. Amen. They're doing the Lord's work when they do that one. That is a really good one. So that's your favorite dessert?
Dessert. Okay. Dessert. But I love Chick-fil-A. So yesterday was great.
You know, it was quite the moment at the church last night when we were there meeting with them, when the catering guy walked through with Chick-fil-A. And is there more of a God moment than to be at church and Chick-fil-A show up? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I will say that sandwich is life-changing. I wish you could get their fries when they do the catering box. If Chick-fil-A's listening to this podcast, could you... Please, these little fake chip things, it's not cutting it.
I was digging in there looking for them because I didn't know that they don't bring them.
Yeah, they just do those chips that look like waffle fries. It's a total fake. You know, it's funny because when we would fly back to the States, that's always what we wanted. Is that what you look forward to when you go to the States?
All the time. I have a whole story. I'll tell you later.
Well, go ahead.
No, not now.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. Derek ate all my Chick-fil-A sauce when I took it back home.
I cannot believe that. You want to talk about a betrayal in a marriage is using all the Chick-fil-A sauce. So be sure you get some more.
I will.
Get him his bottle, put his name on it. Mm-hmm. Take your bottle and say, boys, you do not get one.
Don't touch. This is for Mom.
I love that. All right. So we're going to do the next section of this podcast here with you, which is whale tales. So it's Go Fish Podcast.
Okay.
Whale tales. These are big, crazy stories. They can be God stories. You know how fishermen, well, I don't have fishermen in Uganda. You're talking about fishermen. In the U.S., what really happened at the lake, no one will ever know. But they don't let facts get in the way of a good story. Now, that's not exactly what we're going for here on Whale Tales. We just want to hear either a God story or just something that's hilarious and wild. So what do you have as a whale tale? Okay, so... That's funny.
That is going to be something. So in 2014, I lived in Wisconsin. And I was trained, told a few rules about driving in America. And this was in the wintertime when they were telling me all of this. It was summertime. Because summer, you don't have school.
Right.
And so they didn't tell me about the school bus. And that...
Oh, no.
You're not supposed to pass the school bus or supposed to wait. In Uganda, you don't. It's just... So, I had a moment there. It was scary. I thought I was going to be deported. They were very nice neighbors. They were like, oh, they told me what to do, but it was crazy, and that wasn't the only thing. Parking, I got lots of parking tickets. Speeding, I was like, whoo, there's no one. So, so I don't know where that is, but I have learned my lessons about driving in the U.S., and it is so boring. You would only understand that if you come to Uganda.
Yes,
because
I have been to Uganda several times, and exciting is one way to describe it. I think for an American, overwhelming might be another word. You know what I get in trouble with when I go to Uganda or any country where they drive on the right side of the left side? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's opposite of how it is here. Is when I go to cross as a pedestrian, I'll look the wrong way.
Whoa.
So I always look left instead of looking right. And the last time I almost got that main street in Jinja, I almost got taken out. It was scary.
Yeah, but when my friends come, I'm always like, okay, I will look for you. You don't have to worry about that. I'll hold your hand and look the right way.
Ruthie, thank you for being a part of Global Outreach and joining us on Go Fish today. If people want to know more about you or their ministry, how can they do that?
They can go to the website on Global and look for us as Ruth and Derek Kato. And also we're on Facebook as Yahweh Tendereza Ministries. That's the name of our ministry. And we send out newsletters, so you can sign up and give us your emails, and we'll be happy to chat with you and share more of what God is doing in our lives.
Absolutely. And I will let you know, listeners, she really means it when she says, come to Uganda. So go see Ruthie in Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us on Go Fish today.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Man, Ruthie is an incredible human being, isn't she?
She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. She's one of those people that you remember where you were when you met them.
That's so true.
That's who she is. And it's amazing how God's using her. I think about if God called me to go back to my village, if you will, my hometown, and pastor a church or do something in that tiny little place. I love going there. I love seeing my parents. I love going to church and visiting those friends that we have there.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom what it must be like to try to do ministry in your own village.
Yeah, man, we're just thankful for her testimony and her willingness to join us on the podcast. Thank you, Ruthie.
Absolutely.
And we're really encouraged to see what's going to happen and continue to happen with Yahweh and your ministry there. Overflow. There's a lot flowing. There's a lot swirling. It's been a busy week. I know you and I are both tired, but I know that God has been doing a work in your heart, and would love to just kind of get a little bit of that overflow.
Yes, Josh. So like I mentioned earlier, it's like church camp for adults here. We get the joy of you and our friend Krista leading us in worship to start the day. And today we did hymns.
Yeah, we sang a few hymns today.
It was fantastic. And get to hear the word opened. My week was a little bit different because of some scheduling things. So I ended up speaking on something that I don't usually talk about. I had to switch sessions. And each day we work through the values of global outreach. So one of those values is humility. And when I say value, what I mean is these are the behaviors that should describe how we go about our work as global outreach missionaries.
Yeah.
And when we think about humility, a lot of times we think, oh, Jesus was humble in how he was born. He was humble in how he died. He chose to die a criminal's death. And I just can't get out of my mind one more piece of that really occurred to me this week as I was preparing, genuinely. That Jesus as Emmanuel, that he not only was born in humility, that he died a servant, but that his entire life he chose to live in humility, meaning, he could have shown up like Thor, if you watch Thor, the Marvel movie, and he just shows up and he's already ripped, muscles everywhere, and he has his hammer and he can do whatever. He had every right. Jesus had every right to show up that way.
Yeah.
But he did not. Now, he is coming back as conquering king.
It's true.
But the first coming was not that. And he chose to learn to talk and walk and sit under someone else's teaching and submit to his parents and all those things. And it just really impacted me. I want to read this quote just briefly from Ted Essler, the president of Missio Nexus, that speaks to this concept of humility for missionaries. And I want you to think about it in how you serve in your church or that local outreach ministry you do in your church. Here's what Ted writes. Jesus did not come in the robes of political power and dominance. This is undeniable. He emptied himself, taking the form of a servant. Much of global missions, missiology has been focused on co-ministering with others from around the world. But this is great, but this is only a part of mutuality. So he's introducing this idea of mutuality. It's a realization that Imago Dei exists in all people, including those to whom God sends us. They're not the subjects of our ministry efforts. Instead, we must empty ourselves, take on the form of a servant, and truly value them as not just equals, but as those we serve. This next part is the one that really gets me. This is a radical with, under, and not a to, over. So we're working with them or even under the authority of the people that we're going to serve. And we're not just ministering to them or lording over them. May the way that I work be characterized by that humility that I go in service of the team that I lead. May our global outreach missionaries not go as conquering Americans, but as humble servants who are willing to sit, listen, and submit to other people. So the Lord's really just been working on me in that, and I hope that challenges you as a listener to, when you do that outreach to that neighborhood that you're not fond of, are you this hero that's showing up to save the day? Or are you going to serve them, listen to them, and honor them because they have the image of God in them as well?
Yeah. Man, Jesus always taught that there was a better way, and that it was an exclusive way, that it was his way, but he always did it in, like you said, with such humility that they realized that for themselves.
Yes.
And they had to come to the understanding and empty themselves of themselves in order to see that he was better. And I think sometimes the humility aspect of the ministry of Jesus gets lost somewhere in evangelism translation. It's like, I got to be bold.
Right.
And, we've got this great word, and we should be bold, and it is a great word. But Jesus was just as careful with his words as how he spoke them. And how he lived within that community. He, like you said, he didn't come as Thor. He came as a baby.
As a baby.
That's
pretty vulnerable.
Yeah,
and pretty
it's
humble.
pretty vulnerable. Well, John, thank you for sharing what's on your heart. This has been truly an incredible week. I think this episode has been a lot of fun as well, getting to see different things and talk to different folks like Ruthie, and I'm just excited for what's coming. We do have, the next episode is going to be a fun one. We've already got it scheduled out, and I will say it is not being shot in the U.S. I don't know if we want to leave a little mystery there, but it will be international. So
it'll be international. We'll just leave it at that, I think,
yeah,
Josh.
I think we should. So stay tuned for that. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to this on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. That helps when we release another episode. We're not doing this to make money, and even if we were, I don't think it would work. So we just want people to be blessed, and we want to be sharing what God is doing in our midst here at Global, and we hope that that's what this is doing. So hit the subscribe button, share this with somebody you think might be blessed or want to listen to it, and we're really excited for you to tune in next time.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, John.
Won't he do it?
Yes, he will. Hey, devil will try.
But he can't. All right, we did it.